Welcome to Between the Details, the podcast where event planning gets real. I'm Jessica Ralph, owner of Parties a la carte.
And I'm Aaron Lockwood, owner of Lockwood Studios. Each week, we'll be sharing insider tips, honest advice, and behind-the-scenes truth for both vendors and clients.
Welcome to today's episode. Today, we are talking about event strategy and the ROI from events.
I like this topic. It's definitely different than weddings, but I like to, be able to talk a little bit about corporate and the nonprofit sector and all that. So I think probably to start out, in my opinion, one of the biggest differences is that you're probably working with some of the same clients year after year.
For sure.
Whereas a wedding is kind of like a one-off.
Well, maybe for some, but not for me.
Usually, at least for overtime. So
I get their wedding, then I get their corporate events.
That's
then
true, because a lot of them are
Yes.
business owners or things like that.
So I love that because I know them from a personal side, which then I think makes the conference or the social event so much better because we already understand them at a personal level. And so we can take those things that we know about them and put them into the other world.
I think one of the other main kind of things that would make a difference between a corporate event, a fundraiser or whatever versus a wedding is that a lot of times the client has a specific goal in mind.
Correct.
So what are they needing to accomplish from this event? So what are some of the things that you see that the clients use to measure the success of an event, especially when it's something that they're doing year after year or
that's a
growth?
Great question. I think it's different for every client. It really depends on their goals. We just did an event that was two parts. It was a real estate launch event, and it was, I think, two things. One, to have attendance and to make the development known. But I also think the second part of it was to let everyone know that this developer was here and they were making a splash and they were coming in to do big things. So I think that event was measured by the amount of press they received, by the attendees that were coming, the number. I mean, that one, we had an abundance of people coming. So I think it was two parts there.
That's interesting. So there is a tangible, measurable thing at the event itself with how many people showed up. But then I'm sure also there's a lot of things that carry over afterwards that they want to track and measure, and especially if they hold in
the press, the media, the articles that are written about them, the social component. This event had some influencers at it. So what is that doing on the platforms? I think, also just for them, I think showing a level that they were coming into play at, right? It's we're here, we're doing big things. Our events are going to be spectacular because our building is spectacular.
That's huge.
And so I think they wanted the two things to correlate.
Okay, so that particular event had a very tangible thing that they were able to measure, based on attendance, also probably the buzz that it created on social media.
Huge buzz.
Okay.
Huge buzz. For you as a vendor, besides how the event looks and feel, how do you define success?
I think, and again, this is another aspect of the fact that a lot of times we get to work with these companies multiple times, or we're all as opposed to a wedding, a lot of times we're also producing stuff for them before the event. So we are able to get a lot of feedback from them after the event. So the fact that, maybe we're creating some promotional type stuff for them to use before the event. But then also the fact that we're usually creating stuff from the event for them to use either to promote future events or, just to send out to maybe people that weren't able to attend the event. So we get a lot of good feedback from them as to how they're able to utilize what we produce for them, whether it's photos or video. And then also the fact that a lot of times they're able to kind of reuse that content over and over again. So sometimes the future use of all that continues on even beyond just the success of the event itself.
So that's for you, them using that footage and them coming back to you year after year, that for you feels like a successful.
For sure. And then for success from them, for their side of it is like, is the next event bigger, or did they raise more money or whatever? So I think it gives us a sense of like, okay, we really help contribute to the success of not just the event itself, but their overall goal and mission, especially if it's like a nonprofit or something like that. Or, you know, like the event that that we did with you recently, where it's kind of more like their clients attending.
Yes.
So then measured in attendance.
It was a user conference.
Right, a user conference. So then you can measure the success, like in like, did attendance go up for next year? You know, were they able to use the video that we produced? And we actually got really good feedback from them on that they were able to really utilize that video to promote next year's event. And so I think that's huge.
I think for them in particular, it's attendance, like how many people are coming. This year we were turning people away at the very end because we had just exceeded, you know, even our original numbers, and kind of had already gone up several times in what we were willing to, or what they were willing to kind of host. And, I think too, it's very successful because they get a lot of feedback on how great the event was, and they're getting that positive messaging out from people, like, you know, oh my gosh, you got to go to that conference, it's so great. I think the word of mouth is great for them. Also, from a standpoint of what they're using you for, is like they're getting in-person reviews that are from a camera. And so I think those kind of reviews where someone is literally saying this is great and this company is great, that's just, you can't beat that.
Yeah, that's huge.
Where are you going to get your clients to come in and give you a video, a testimonial of how amazing your company is? And so the ROI on that is forever.
Yeah, that's great. It's almost like having a Google review on the spot where they're like just raving about the event. But I think
it's so much more impactful because it's video, because you can see the person at the conference or in a space that looks like that, you know, it's just so much more. People are so visual. I think when you have that versus just like reading what someone wrote, it's way more impactful.
Yeah, and it's heartfelt, it's genuine. So when you're planning an event with, you know, a corporate client or a nonprofit, that type of thing, how do you help them balance the things that they can measure versus like some of the intangible things, as far as like more like maybe brand awareness or, you know, growing some of their platforms? Like I think every client is different in their expectations of what they want for the event, right? For a nonprofit, I'll use that as an example. They're measuring it honestly by how much money they make, right? And so we've got to find the balance of making the event successful from a standpoint that guests want to keep coming back year after year. But we also have a due diligence, you know, our to make sure that we're spending the money in the right way. And so there's a line there that we have to toe, and we have to be responsible. We have to say to ourselves, okay, we need this event to be elevated and for the guests that are coming to feel like they got their value out of their ticket. But we also need to make sure that at the end of this, there's money left over to help the cause. We're working on 2 nonprofits in Tampa right now. And it's definitely interesting to say, okay, how are we making money? How are we spending our sponsors' money, right? How are we making everyone feel like this is an event they want to keep coming back to, because they are spending, you know, $200 to $500 a ticket, depending on the level. And then you've got these sponsors who are giving, you know, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, whatever it is, you know, higher than that sometimes. And so you've got to find the balance between all of that. But I think for a nonprofit, it's always about how much money they have at the end to support the cause. And I'm got to imagine from that side of it, that's probably the trickiest balance, because it's like, you don't want to overspend, but then also if you don't spend the money in the right areas and make it something that people want to be part of, and it creates a buzz and they're excited about it, especially from the sponsors side of things, I got to imagine like if they see it as like, from year to year, it's continuing to grow, continuing to bring in more people. And it's like great, you know, exposure for them, because they also need an ROI on the fact that they're giving.
They need to be attending, having a fun time, obviously getting a donation for their corporation, doing some good in the community and getting that, people knowing that they've done that. And then, but also having a fun time.
Yeah.
Like,
huge.
are they going to be like, hey, I'll take my money and go somewhere else and have a good time.
Yeah. And I think we talked about that on one of the previous episodes where we were talking about guest etiquette and like RSVPing to events where like so many times like people don't show, like they'll pay for the tables and then not show up.
Yeah.
But I think when you have an event that people are like so excited to be there, there's like maybe all those like interactive things that you're doing. And
we've talked about that a lot, where I feel like people will buy a ticket, but then they don't come, and that actually hurts the charity. And I think people don't realize that. It's like, it's so generous of you to have donated that $200 or the $1,000 or $5,000, whatever it is for the table. But all of that money is primarily going back to making the event happen, right? The food, the beverage, the decor, all of those things. And so if you're not actually there doing the, the activities, whether it's the auction or buying the raffle tickets or giving at the heart or purchasing something, that's where the real money comes from. Yeah. And so while it's so wonderful that people, feel like, oh, I've bought the ticket, I've done good, but all of that's just going back because we're preparing for you to come. We're preparing for you to be, for you to attend this event, and we've got food and drinks and chairs and a table for you or whatever it is. And if you're not there, all of that essentially just went to waste.
So is that pretty common where the ticket sales for people attending, like they try to use that to cover the cost of the event, and then sponsorships and donated items?
I think
and
all
things
are
like that?
different. I mean, some I think utilize that. Some sponsorships I think pay directly for particular things. I think it's all mix and match. I would say majority probably are using their sponsorship and ticket money to pay for the actual event. And maybe there's a little left over, but then I think majority are making their money in the ask, in the raffle tickets, in the auction. That's where the big money comes from. The casino tables or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
I think
they need the people there.
They need them there.
So,
and I think there's definitely a misconception that, I don't need to be there. Yeah. But we do. I mean, we need more of your money.
Well, and that's something from our side of it that we really love doing, is producing those advertising videos, sizzle videos, like really pulling at the heartstrings. Like a lot of times we're like, interviewing people that the charity has helped, like creating these stories. And so I think when they can put those out on social media or send them out in emails and stuff prior to the event, it really kind of like creates a buzz about the event. And then it kind of sets the expectations for the guests to know, like, this is going to be a really cool thing to be part of, which even not just from the fundraising aspect, but also from like the corporate events. So like you're talking about, where they were able to get like a lot more people in attendance because the people saw the video, the footage from the preview, and they're like, oh, wow, that looked like
and this year, like for that particular event was even better, right? Like we had a band, we had a party, we had like all of these moments. Yeah. And when you start to see that in the video, you're gonna be like, oh, I want to go to this conference. I mean, if you're going to go to a conference, while you need it to be educational and there needs to be some of those components to it, right? You also you're giving up a lot of time. Yeah. You should be fed well. You should be having a good time. There should be some, real networking and connections. And so we try to show that with you through the video so that people really understand, like, this is just more than you sitting here listening. It's an experience.
Yeah. And I think that would fall under some of those intangible things for it, where it's a little harder for a company to measure, but like the networking that takes place, the relationships that they're building, the connections that they're making, building the brand awareness, that type of thing. Like that goes a long ways towards future events. And so when people see a video like that, and then they want to be part of that, especially in industries where a lot of times you can feel a little bit more isolated from your community. So then to have an event that you can attend where you're with other like-minded people, similar interests, it really just kind of,
I think there's just, it's definitely a value you can't put a number on.
Yeah. So, and I guess also too, from the aspect of, from our side of it, when we're also talking about the nonprofit, especially because the fact that they are in it to try to raise money. So a lot of times we're trying to look at like, what can we do to help them add value, support their mission, that kind of thing.
Also without devaluing yourself.
Right. Yes.
Like, I think that's the biggest thing. It's like,
Yeah.
how do I help this nonprofit and, give them something so that they have a great experience, but also not devalue myself.
Yeah.
Because the reality is that you're a service. You can't really write that off as a tax
as
write-off.
a donation
Yeah.
or something. Yeah. Cause I mean, a lot of times we will, donate like auction items, things like that. Like maybe we're giving, like a branding session or like a headshots or something like that for a business. So, we can kind of help from that aspect of it. But, and I think you and I have talked about this before, cause that's always kind of like the balance with things, is that I feel, and again, this is not me like coming up with these brainstorm ideas, whatever, but I've, learned over the years that it's better to add value to what you're offering. And maybe you're just going to like add some additional time or donate something or just producing, some social videos or something like that, rather than just discounting what you do.
I mean,
do you find that on your side of it too? Like that's more helpful? Or?
I think sometimes it's hard as a planner. I'm really doing it all regardless. Yeah. So it's hard for me to, like, for you, it's easy to add on a service, right? Like you can say, okay, we're going to do welcome, photos of everybody as they come in.
Yeah.
I don't really have much more I can add. So for us, when we're doing a charity event, we're trying to say to ourselves, okay, is this something that calls to our heart? Is this something that, we have experience with, or what makes us want to do it? And I think, that's one element. And the other element is who are you being exposed to? So we try to look at that and say like, okay, like if I was an up and coming vendor, I would, say, okay, now my name is in front of these 300 people. And it only takes one or two people to notice you to make it worth it sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't think, 300 people are going to realize who the photographer was, but there'll be a few that do. And so if they're the right few, that could be great for you.
Well, and a lot of the events that I've done with you, the client has been so gracious to give a shout out to you or to us or whatever. So I think that's really great.
I run. So, I get so embarrassed when they do it. I know I should be so thankful and happy.
Don't bring me up on stage, please. So.
No, I think it's like, oh gosh, don't bring me on stage. Yeah. Like as much as we're doing this thing, no. But not when I'm not expecting it. Like I need to be prepared.
Yeah. Give me some forewarning.
Yeah, forewarning. But I definitely hide. When speeches are happening, I'm literally around the corner hiding as much as I can. And it's so thoughtful and sweet and caring that they do it and means the world. But what I look like on a wedding day, forget about it. I do not want to be highlighted. I've been there for like 15 hours. Like, no, thank you. Please don't everyone look my way.
I usually have a camera I can hide behind if they do try to.
Yeah, you're usually chasing me down with the camera to point it at me.
Those moments when they bring you up there for.
No, thank you.
Now, do you feel like, so maybe even stepping away from like just the nonprofit thing, but like, let's just say like in corporate in general, do you feel like the industry can get a little carried away with placing too much emphasis on the actual like production value of it rather than kind of looking at the strategic outcome of the event? Like where do they find the balance? Like what's the most important?
It's so hard because you've got people that are spending their money, right? Like you're going to an event that you've paid $200 or $300 a ticket. If you leave there hungry or thirsty, that's a problem. Like you're not going to go back the next year. It doesn't matter what the cause is because you left hungry and thirsty, right? So for us, there's such a fine balance of making sure that you have a guest experience that matches the ticket price. And you can be strategic about it and be thoughtful, right? Like I try to be thoughtful with it and say, okay, what can we do here that's not as elaborate but gives the feeling of that, right? So I would say we work so hard on a nonprofit event to make it feel a way without spending the money. But it's very tough to do. Yeah. But your guests have to leave feeling like they got the value out of their ticket. They don't, yes, they care about it, but they're not going to come back the next year if they didn't have a good time. So you've got to make sure that they've had a good time.
Yeah. I see that from the side of, like, we do a lot of awards banquets and things. So I kind of find the psychology of it interesting where I see these companies where some companies literally, it's like unbelievable what they do for their employees. whether they're recognizing certain like sales goals or things like that. Like we had one recently where they literally bought out the entire hotel for like 2 days for their entire company. And so like all the food and drink and everything was covered. And they had, like an amazing award banquet and all that. And so I could imagine from a company side of things too, they have to balance between like not overspending, but also making it an amazing event where their employees feel super appreciated.
Yes, but if you spend too much, they're going to be like, well, why didn't we all get raises? Right? You know, because and it's impossible to make everybody happy. It really is. You're not going to make everybody happy. Not everyone is going to feel the same. So you've got to find the balance that's right for your company and what you want it to be. And the same for the nonprofit.
Yeah. Well, and I guess like probably the company culture has a lot to play into that, because some companies just like have such great culture and their employees actually like really enjoy working together and being together and socializing. And so like that plays into it. Other companies, like you said, they probably rather just have the bonus check. Yes. Like, give me a plaque, a ribbon, and give me a bonus check.
Not because of their culture. It could also just be that person, his opinion, right? But I think it's one of those things where it's really hard to make everybody happy, but the culture does definitely play a large role into it.
For sure. Yeah, that's interesting.
When do you think, like, from seeing the balance between a memorable event and still achieving the goal?
Yeah. And again, like it's so many of those things are hard to measure, but I have seen, both sides of it. So I've seen where they just barely put any effort into it. And then it just slowly kind of fizzled out and died and went away. So then maybe that's something that a nonprofit has to be a little bit more careful about. Even just, small things where I've seen, just for an example, like I've done a lot of charity golf tournaments where we're providing coverage. And so the ones where they're like year after year, they just like are shrinking. And so they don't have good door prizes and this and that versus like the ones that are like holding him at like really nice venues. They're providing like really good door prizes, like getting a lot of attendance. They're starting to charge more. So like that's a delicate balance for them to find out. But I think people can know like if they're doing the best with what they have. So if they feel like, they really tried to give them the best experience with what they had to work with, whereas you can kind of tell the ones that are just like lackadaisical about it.
I think even like for us, like when we go to a networking event, even if it's free, right? Even if it's like included or it's not, if you're having an event and like, let's say you're a hotel and you're having a networking event, right? And you want good return on your investment, then you have to deliver. You need to be showing me the actual level of the event that you would be sourcing for my clients, right? Like don't have me come and not have food and drink and make me wait for valet or have to park, a million blocks away. Like, I think that's something people don't think about necessarily. It's like, okay, you're inviting people and you want a return on your investment. What's their experience like?
For sure.
And I think venues and vendors especially don't necessarily always think it all the way through. And we are leaving there saying, oh, can you believe that was all the food they have, or they didn't have any drinks, or hey, do you want to go to eat because I'm starving still? So I think that's something to be cautious about, is if you are going to have an event, you better knock it out of the park if you're in our industry. We're doing that networking event in July, and I keep saying to ourselves, okay, do we have enough food? Do we have enough activities? Does this look good enough? Because my name's on it.
For sure.
And the hotel's name's on it. And I want to make sure that like when people leave there, they don't have anything to complain about. And we're thinking through like, what's their experience? How are they arriving? How are they getting there? When they walk in, what happens? When are they having interactions? When is food starting? When are we changing foods? Do we have something for them to take away? Like we're thinking through, and that's a free event. And all of these vendors, I've said, we've got to bring our A game because we don't want someone to walk away and have a bad taste in their mouth for us.
Well, and that's a very important mindset to have. So, we've been talking with all the other vendors and like the way you and I run our businesses and stuff, like we're always looking to do the best that we possibly can. And so, when we bring that mindset to it, we're not going to just settle for mediocre. And so the reason that people are coming to you to help you, for them, to either raise more money or have a successful corporate event is because you bring that mindset to that. So you're not going to be like, we're just going to do a mediocre, event or, put the effort into it. So I feel like if people want to start getting into that more elevated space where, they're working with the vendors that are doing these larger, nicer events, like now's when you have to have that mindset. You have to just...
Yeah, you don't want all those side chats to be negative things about you. You want to make sure that they're really talking positive, that it was a great event.
Yeah. And I mean, again, let's face it, the people that they need to attract to those events are the people that have the money to give. The average middle income person isn't just going to write a check for $100,000 to a charity just because like they enjoyed, what they were telling them. Some people might, but I mean, that's like a more accessible level. So
what do you think are the top 2 to 3 things that a client should be utilizing to measure this success of the event? I can't talk.
Well, I think, one being the experience that people had at the event for sure. Like, could you tell people were enjoying themselves? Were people staying for the duration of the event?
Oh yeah, when they go home, that's a really good one.
Right.
Did people stay to the end? Are you having a hard time getting them out of the room?
Did you have to shoo them?
Am I flickering? Am I flickering the lights?
Last call, get out of here. So
that's
I think the engagement at the event is a huge thing. How was the attendance? Like, I think that's another good thing to measure.
I think you can measure that too from year to year, right? Not even just that one, but it's like, okay, how many people did we have repeat and come back the next year?
Yep. So, and then, they probably have to use some of that to plan for the future event growth. And then, if it's a nonprofit, a very easy thing to measure is like, how much
did they raise?
How much did it bring in? So I think from a corporate side of things, if it's an event where you have vendors, things like that, like how many people are committing to coming back the next year. So
I think in general, it really just depends on the company or the charity of what is important to them. But I think as event, professionals, it's our job to ask a lot of questions on the front end so that we understand their goals and we can help them achieve them through the planning and process.
Yeah, for sure. Like there's so many questions, things that you have to make sure that you really cover. So not only are they knowing what they're going to get, what the expectations are, but you really understand, especially if it's a nonprofit, like what is their mission? Who is they serve? Like what are the goals that they need to accomplish? And then everything that goes out that we produce supports that.
We even like to get down to, okay, what is it based on the mission? What does it take to have that done for each individual person? What's the dollar amount? Because then you can ask people like, hey, I need $105 or I need $200 or I need $50, whatever it is. I need that amount of money to make this happen per person. How many people are you willing to help? And I think knowing that information helps us frame things that is easier for people to kind of take in and say, oh yes, I can help one person. I can help 5 people, whatever it is.
Right. What does it reach? What is it? Yeah. That's interesting. What are some advice that you would give to vendors that are, possibly interested in like stepping into that space where they're working with nonprofits or whatever? Like what's something that they can use to evaluate, like if this partnership is worth it beyond just like the financial side of it?
I think it's one, does it call to your heart, right? Is it something that has meaning for you and makes sense for you to be a part of? We do a lot of events. I don't need to do it for the marketing aspect anymore. I'm really doing it because I care about the cause or I care about the relationship of the person who's asking me to do it. And then I would say it's really looking at it like, are you going to make additional connections? Because I think the whole world runs on connections, right? It's so much in our world, who you know, who you talk to. And I think people are always, say, oh, I know this person. I know this person. So I think that's a great, component of it as well.
Sure. I think, like you said too, is it something that like aligns with something that you're passionate about? And at the end of the day, to be able to, do something that we do to make a living, but then also to pass that along to help somebody else.
Yeah.
Like that's very rewarding.
Yes. I think it's a huge reward.
So
I mean, we love to do a few charity events a year and kind of have that connection. And it's, we work with a lot with Julie Weintraub's Hands Across the Bay. That's a charity that pulls us. It's for domestic violence and families that are experiencing, very significant hardships. And I'll pretty much do anything for Julie because I see the good that she does for everyone.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like, I'll move mountains if I can to get that event done because I know that all of that money is going back to help the families.
Yeah. I love that. I feel like that's so important because I feel like a lot of times like these really, really large corporation, charities things, like there's so many questions sometimes, like where do these funds go to?
Yeah.
Whereas if you work with a local charity that you literally know personally and you have a vested interest in their success, and it's very tangible to see like what they're actually doing. So Jen and I have a number of different charities and stuff. Actually seems to be like within the whole same realm where they're like helping single families, they're helping people get their lives back, providing transportation, education, things like that.
Yeah.
And so just like something like that can be so life-changing for these people. And like literally it can change generations.
Yes.
Like it's helping their kids, it's helping their grandkids. So it's like really cool.
It's also nice to get to see, like for instance, with Hands Across the Bay, I know that they're not taking any of that money. Their entire staff is paid from Gold and Diamond Source. And so literally every dime that they raise is going back to the families. And like now they have a warehouse where families can come and get things that they need. And they're going out and doing acts of kindness, all around. And there's just so much good that comes from that. And so when you can see that firsthand, it just makes you want to give.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of the organizations that we work with, like especially at their events and stuff, a lot of them are like volunteers that are helping at the events and organizations. So from our aspect of it too, like we oftentimes just have to be a little bit more patient with certain things or whatever.
Because they're not in our world.
Exactly. Like it's a whole new thing for them. So they're donating their time and they're passionate about it too. So like,
good.
Sometimes you have to look through past some of those little things with that, but it's definitely, like you said, it's very rewarding to see. So,
okay. I think that's a good note to end on.
Yeah. I love that.
I think our tip of the day would be go find a charity to help and volunteer with and
something that you can be passionate about
do some good in the community.
Yeah.
Okay. I love that. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you.